Well, good evening. And tonight, I did something because people said something, so I decided to do it. If you study the book of Revelation long enough and you try to really study it, you're bound to come across all these charts that have all these things written out, that kind of thing. Because one of the things is the book of Revelation is not written chronologically. Let me correct that. It's written chronologically, and then it goes, meanwhile, and backs up to something, kind of thing. In reality, I'm going to reference movies here, just because I like referencing movies, especially ones I like. The Lord of the Rings, particularly the Two Towers. If you watch the Two Towers, the movie continually cuts between Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and Frodo and Sam. But if you read the books don't do that. In fact, book 3, it's actually like 6 books. Book 1 and book 2 are the Fellowship. And book 1 ends, book 2 starts with the Battle of Amon Hen. Or book 3 does, sorry. And then book 3 is all Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas. The Battle of Helm's Deep and all of that. Then book 4, the entire thing is Frodo and Sam, where they meet Smeagol and all that, and their travels. And then book 5, it comes back together. So what did the movies try to do? It tried to line up. Okay, well, they're doing this. This is what Sam and Frodo were doing. And then this is what they were doing. This is what they were doing. The book of Revelation is kind of like that. You could almost separate it into 2 sections. Those which are chronological, and then you've got these inserts. And that's kind of what I have here. So basically, I have a basic timeline. You're not going to be able to see it that well, I'm sorry. So what I've done, Revelation 1 to 3 is before what we call the tribulation starts. This is the letters to the churches, that which is. If you remember the book of Revelation, at the start, that which is, that which will be, and yet to come, that kind of thing. So the start, I'm putting like Revelation chapter 4. Well, technically, it's Revelation 4 and 5, if you really want to be technical about it. This is where John's taken up and he sees the vision of the throne room, the one seated on the throne. He sees what it looks like. Then he sees the Lamb who was slain and the Lamb who comes and takes the scroll. Then you really start to get into it. And then what you have now is, so I say the start, Revelation 4 and 5. It's kind of really the start of what is to come. And for the next little while, you've got seals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are chronological. No reason to doubt that. Now, if you go chronologically, what's going to happen? This is literally what it'll be. Revelation 4 and 5, Revelation 6. Then you would jump to Revelation 8, 9 to 12. Then you would jump again all the way, this section here, what we call the Great Tribulation, okay? So the first half of the tribulation, from my study, this is where people disagree with me, but this is my study, is seal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the opening of the 7th seal. There's silence in heaven for half an hour. Then you have trumpets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. Okay? That is the first half of the tribulation. The 6th trumpet kind of marks the midway point. Now, the reason I say this is from my study, because many will kind of say, oh no, it's exactly 3 parts. First part is seals, second part is trumpets, third part is the bowls or the vials. From my study, I don't think so. And the other thing that's really interesting here, this looks all kind of nice and neat, but here's the thing, we have no idea how long each of these seals are going to last, each of these judgments. I don't know how long the first trumpet lasts. We're not told. It just says the trumpet's blown and this is what's happened. And that happens right up until the 5th trumpet. Because the 5th trumpet is blown, but right before that, remember it says, woe, woe, woe. Okay? So that's 3 woes. So the 3 woes are trumpets 5, 6, 7. The 7th trumpet, I'll get back to my timeline here, encompasses the 7 bowls. Okay? So the first woe is the demonic locust. That is the 5th trumpet. And we're told that that lasts for 5 months. Then the next trumpet, when that's over, the 6th trumpet is blown. And remember, before the sixth trumpet, the text says the first woe has passed. Okay? The reason that that's important is because I'm using that as a time marker kind of thing. Then the sixth trumpet is blasted. And what I'm looking for, when I studied it, looking in the text, I was looking for when does it say the second woe has passed? And it says it after the two witnesses. Now, that means the two witnesses do their ministry, they're killed by the beast, and they're resurrected and ascended to heaven. And it says, and then for the second woe has passed, which means the second woe is the entirety of the sixth trumpet. And the sixth trumpet includes the demonic horsemen, the 2 million horsemen, which fire and sulfur that come out, kill so many people. And it tells us it lasts time, and half a times, 42 months. Now, why has that become important? And this is where I said I'm going to disagree with things. So if you've read The Left Behind and that kind of thing, it has the two witnesses show up right at the start. And their execution is the midway mark. But from the way I've studied it, what I've come to the conclusion of, no, it's the sixth trumpet. And so their ministry is not the first half, it's the second half. And so this entire period, if you notice, I've got very little written here. That's because this is all one section. When it comes down to it, during this time, what's actually happening is the two witnesses, and make no mistake, they're doing their job. Unlike Left Behind, it doesn't actually say that they're only hitting plagues in Jerusalem. It says their plagues hit everywhere. So they're doing their ministry, and they can strike any plague that they so desire during that time frame. At the same time, we have the Antichrist, fully in power now. We've got the false prophet, fully in power now. You've got the mark of the beast, all in power now. And this is all happening during this 42-month period. And then what happens at the end of that? You've got the seventh trumpet, which then ushers in the 7 bowls. And the 7 bowls are not, I don't believe, are spaced out evenly. I think they're just one right after the other. They're really quick. They're just, bam, here it is. And that encompasses the third woe, which leads to the accumulation of the return of Christ. So, what I've done here is just kind of lay it out. So in order of the books, what you have is, now pre-trib, don't miss that. I'm not talking about rapture. I'm just talking about it's before the start. Okay? So pre-trib, this Revelation 4 and 5 are now the setting, God's throne room. This is where he's going to view everything from. Start Revelation 6, seals 1 to 6. Okay? Chapter 7 is an interlude. So it's a break of it. So I show that up here. This is why you get 6, then you got interlude, Revelation chapter 7. And that is answering a question that was in Revelation 6, which said, the wrath of the Lamb has come, who can stand? Revelation 7 is the answer to that question. Then it picks back up with the 7th trumpet. The 7th trumpet is going to encompass, the 7th seal is going to encompass the 7 trumpets. And the trumpets 1 to 6 are Revelation 9, 13 to 21, and 14, 6 to 13. That means there's a break in here. There's going to be an interlude. This is why I said Revelation is chronological, but it's got breaks. It backs up a time. And chapter 10 is an interlude. Again. Then Revelation 11 to 1 to 13, 18 is what we call the Great Tribulation. And then you've got an interlude again. Who can stand? Who can survive this? Who's going to be able to get through? Because remember, this whole thing is introduced to the Antichrist, Satan's fall from heaven. Satan's now dwelling with men. That's what kicks off the Great Tribulation. Antichrist's reign, false prophet, mark of the beast. Who can make war against the beast? We got our answer with the interlude. And then you continue, that's the interlude. Then you continue on, it's the 7th trumpet. Now the 7th trumpet does a lot. So the story goes, if you just go straight through, it's going to read straight through, and then it's going to do a back up. Here's what's going on. Some things are going on here. And so you have the seventh bowl, the seven trumpets, which is Revelation 11, 15 and 19, and 15 to 16, 17. That's all the seventh trumpet. Then you've got the interlude again. What happens, this is where we're kind of in our study, what happens to the Antichrist kingdom? What's going on there? So in other words, if we jumped right to it, what you'd actually see time-wise, if you just followed it straight, is the seventh trumpet, the bowls, Christ's return. But then you're left with questions. The Antichrist has built up his kingdom. He's got the false prophet doing his thing. Obviously, he's going to amass his wealth. He's going to amass his city. What happened to him? What's going to happen? That's where we're at now in our study. The interlude, so it backs up. Here's the judgment that's going to fall on his city, on his kingdom. And so what happens? And then you've got your interlude is an end. The interlude is praise for Christ's victor. That's what it is. They're now praising. It's like the Antichrist is lost, the dragon is lost. Praise to Christ. Give glory to the Lord. Then Revelation 19 is the coming of Christ. That's the Antichrist and the beast, the two beasts thrown into the lake of fire. That's the dragon bound for 1,000 years, the coming of Christ with the saints. You got the millennial reign, final judgment, new creation, conclusion. So basically you've got here, I just kind of put a note here, this is the end of the tribulation. Now you've got the coming of Christ, and you've got the events that happen after that, the millennial kingdom and final judgment. As I said, it's not fully in depth, but this is kind of a picture to it. So if you're wondering where we're at in our study, we're kind of like, we reach the end, but we're backing up a bit just to deal with what's taking place. That's where we're at, what's happening. Because up to this point, you got to remember, some things have been mentioned. The three angels doing their proclamation, one coming with the eternal gospel, one saying, fallen is Babylon, but we have no idea what Babylon is yet. Now, we can have a concept of it if we're familiar with the Old Testament, but we haven't even been introduced to it yet. And then you've got the third one who's saying, hey, you take the mark of the beast, you're done. That's the way it goes. So do not take the mark of the beast. Repent. Choose Christ. And it's like, even if it ends your life here, you're going to be victorious with Christ. If you take the mark of the beast, you may live for now, but you're going to be in the eternal fire. And your smoke, your torment's going to raise day and night forever before the throne. And so you had that warning, but we had no introduction. What is Babylon? Where did it come from? Is Babylon literally Babylon? Or is it something else? Does it stand for something else? And as I said, up to that point, we had no real answer. We just had fallen is Babylon. And so we can derive then that if that's the case, Babylon, even from then, we'd say Babylon is definitely something that's not good. It's got to be something that's wicked and evil if God's pouring out his judgment on a particular city. And just, in that case, a city can stand for just a city, or it can stand for an empire. So in other words, the capital city falls, the empire falls. Which way it goes? Well, we're going to unpack all this. Because we're about to hit not just a city, we're going to hit the imagery of a woman. And it's the second woman that we're about to see. We've met a woman before, sort of. Revelation chapter 12. You met the true woman. Now you've got her counterpart. And that shouldn't be a surprise. Remember, I told you, Satan cannot create, he can only imitate and corrupt. So if you got the unholy trinity of the dragon, the Antichrist, and the false prophet, is it any surprise that he would have his chosen city? Because the Lord's got his chosen city, so he'll have his. And it should be no surprise that the Lord's chosen city is called Jerusalem, the city of peace. And what does the beast have? What does the dragon have? Babylon. Is Babylon. And Babylon is something we're going to look at tonight. So this is kind of just a visual representation. Like I said, this isn't fully all through the details. I did it yesterday, sitting at my desk while I was waiting. Truthfully, I'll admit I was waiting for people to leave so I could finish the floors. Get people off the floor so I could sweep mop, and then turns out I didn't have to do it because somebody else saw my mop there and did it, and while I was waiting for them to leave, they finished the floor. When I went out, it was done. I was like, okay. I sent them a thank you message. Whether they got it or not, I don't know. But yes. All right. Before I continue, any questions about this brief thing? You'll get, if you really want, there are far more detailed charts out there. This is just the one I drew up, just going through. Like I said, if you look at other charts, I guarantee you the biggest difference that you're going to find behind it, because what I've been teaching is definitely that I'm saying the sixth trumpet is midway, and that the fact that the two witnesses I'm saying are in the second half. Almost all of them like to put it in the first half. But like I said, the very fact that it says the second woe has passed after the two witnesses, I would have a hard time. Why would the second woe pass before the first woe is done? Kind of thing. Or why would you have the first and second woe during the same time? Or why would you have the second woe going on before the angel even says, woe, 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 kind of thing. And like I said, one of the other things that is most people, what happens is they take the sixth trumpet, the demonic horseman, and they say, well, that's the woe. And therefore the two witnesses are something by themselves. But as I said, if you read the text, it does the demonic horseman, it does the two witnesses, and after the two witnesses, then it says the second woe has passed. So that's why I tend to put it where I do. So when it comes to that, just understand one concept. I'm learning as you guys learn. The more I study, the more I come up with things too. And I'll tell you, and I've said this before, my framework that I work from, although it looks similar to dispensationalism, it's actually classical futurism is what it's called. And that's the one that you'll find early in the church fathers before Augustine. Augustine is kind of where there's a change of, that's in the 330s, later AD. I look earlier than that. And even when I compared my study about where the two witnesses are in the trumpets, it still allows for it. And trust me, the early church fathers, the early classical futurisms, they didn't go into all the details. They just we believe that this is literally going to take place. There literally will be two witnesses, but they didn't really go, it's like, oh, when is it going to be? But they literally said, we believe that the trumpet is going to be exactly as it says, kind of thing. So yeah. All right. With that, last time, a couple weeks ago, we finished off the sixth bowl with studying the Euphrates River and what that meant and the symbolism behind it. And I think we did look quite a bit at the seventh bowl. I'll back up to read it. I'm not going to go too much through it here. Revelation 16, starting verse 17, says, Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, It is done. And there were noises and thundering and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake. Such a mighty and great earthquake has not occurred since men were on the earth. Now the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Then every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And great hail from heaven fell upon men, each hailstone about the weight of a talent. That's about 100 pounds for those who are curious. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of hail, since the plague was exceedingly great. All right. So the seventh bowl is the final bowl, and it really is. It's just the statement, it is done. Just a note here, because I was curious about this. I started digging into the Greek. This is not the same word that Jesus said on the cross. Even the English kind of shows this way. Jesus said, "It is finished." And you would think that, well, if this is the seventh bowl, it would say something very similar. But the Greek word that Jesus used on the cross was tetelestai. Here, the actual Greek word is genongen, which really means, and it appears multiple times throughout the scriptures, it literally means it has become or has been. So it's a very different term. In other words, it is, that's why it comes out, it is done. This has passed, kind of thing, rather than it is finished, as in the work is done. Or the transaction is paid, I should rather say. Tetelestai is actually why you'd see, if you ever seen those shirts or whatnot, where it said, or posters said paid in full, that grasps the meaning of what Jesus said, it is finished. It's paid in full. Everything, the debt is done. Here, it's the work has been accomplished, kind of thing. And you get exactly what it is. Noises, thunders, and lightnings. That should be no surprise. This is one of those things. When God shows up, when God, I mean, like God really shows up, it's not this quiet thing. When God decides to show his presence, it is something magnificent. You take a look. The tabernacle, when God came down, and he actually came down, nobody could enter. The cloud was so thick that nobody could go into it at all. When God came down to meet with Moses on Mount Sinai, and you remember, it's one of those funny things, because if you actually look at the original account of it, most people's like, well, who was allowed on Mount Sinai to meet with God? Well, Moses was. Actually, originally, the people were. Yeah. Everybody was. They were all invited to come out and clean yourselves, get ready, sanctify yourselves, and get ready to come on up. When God showed up and it went boom, shake, right, and they went, you go for us, you intercede, you tell us what God said. And God's like, you got it right for once. You actually learned the fear of God. That's what you were supposed to have. And then when the temple was dedicated, what happened? God showed up, exact same thing as the tabernacle. The glory of the Lord filled it, the cloud of his Shekinah glory came, and they could not enter in. They couldn't go about, they couldn't do the work. So when God shows up, is it any surprise that all of a sudden there's thunderings and lightnings and earthquakes? No. It just shows a picture of who God is. He's that mighty. He's that powerful. And the earthquake is so great that it's not felt in one spot, it's felt everywhere. Now, the thing about this, if you're taking the word literally, this earthquake is even greater than the first one. Revelation chapter 6. The wrath of the Lamb earthquake, as bad as that is, this is even worse. I don't even know what that'd be on a Richter scale. But it says it split the great city. In this case, it's Jerusalem. How do I know it's not talking about the Antichrist city? Because Babylon is next. Babylon's listed too. When you get both, it means they're not the same thing. The great cities divided into three parts, and the other cities collapse. That's got to be one of the worst things. I would not want to be in a city in the middle of an earthquake. Because where are you going to go? I'm just thinking, we don't get that. We don't have that many skyscrapers here. But I just think, like, I've seen videos of, like, when one of those heavy boom lifts, when one of those fall. And they just take things with it. You just imagine, like, our cities, even here in the Maritimes, our cities are not planned out. We just have the old-fashioned way, which is, let's build a thing here. What do we need? We need a shopping mall. Put a shopping mall. Put a grocery store. And then we build. It's like, what do we need now? We need a school. Well, we got no more room there. Just put the school over here. Hospital. Put the hospital over here. Our places really aren't planned out. And I remember the first time I flew into Toronto, and you look, and what do I see? Nice grids. And even when I play a city building game, guess how I build my cities? Nice grids. And you think about those places. And you think about it, if there's an earthquake and you're in the middle of one of those grids, where are you going to go? When a city's collapsed, you're in trouble. In the country, we don't have that problem. I'm just going to step outside and nobody's around for miles. Kind of thing. Not really, but you know how it used to be. Unless, of course, you live down by a brook and all you got is trees around you, and your biggest worry is your neighbors are your bears. It's just the way it goes. You got an eagle neighbor, too, who takes the fish before you can. You fight over food. But yeah, so it's a great earthquake. It says all the cities of it. And it makes a notion here, and great Babylon was remembered before God. But again, what do we have the problem here? What's Babylon? We haven't been introduced to it yet. It's just simply, again, fallen is Babylon the Great. Now you've got, and God remembers Babylon, but we're like, who's Babylon? And it's an important question to ask. We'll get there in a second. But again, it's one of those things, you need to remember it through the scriptures. This is one of those things, like the Euphrates River. It has a particular meaning through the scriptures. And so we're going to look at that, but look at this. So God is going to pour out his fullness of his wrath. He says he remembers it. Great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine and the fierceness of his wrath. Now, even in this, even without knowing what Babylon is, given the context, I would guess it's a city. The reason, an actual city. And the reason I would guess that, just looking at the context, the great city was divided in three. The cities of the world fell, and Great Babylon. So the context would indicate that whether it's the literal name or not, Babylon is a city. And given it's mentioned here, I would draw the conclusion that it's going to be the most important city. And therefore, if it's the most important city, I'm going to probably guess it's going to be the beast's capital city. Whether it's actually called Babylon or not is another thing. But it's the reference to Babylon is there. So now the reason that's important to understand is because one of the things that my old mechanic, as I said, they were believers. And my wife would call them bush mechanics. She just means they're not mechanics that are in the cities, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And in there, he had written on a piece of paper by the cashier there. And it's like, do you think Iraq is not important? Kind of thing. And then it would go through like lists of things that are in Iraq. So it would say the Garden of Eden was in Iraq and Babylon is Iraq. And it goes through the list. And so if you do the geographical ideas, now I could argue against some of those things. It's talking Babylon is in Iraq. That one was true. No arguments there. So this is why you get like in the Left Behind that they would say that the Antichrist, for this case, Nikolai Carpathia is the name they give him. He builds his capital city, literally, Babylon, Iraq. Is that the actual case? Who knows? Could be. Might not be. Because let me ask you this. If I say, think of Sodom, what do you think of? Here you're thinking the one in Jerusalem, one Mesopotamian city of the plains that Abraham watched the destruction that Lot escaped from. Wait a minute though. Revelation talks about the city of Sodom. And it's not Sodom. How do I know it's not Sodom? Because the very next description of it, where the Lord was crucified. Jesus was not crucified in the city of Sodom, or outside the city of Sodom. He was crucified outside of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem got the title Sodom. And that's already in the book of Revelation. So it's possible that the city Babylon is not being called Babylon, but Babylon's being used as the title. Just like saying Jerusalem had become so corrupt that it is Sodom. That this city has become the center of Antichrist, that it deserves the title Babylon. Because you don't want to be named Babylon. I say it's one of those things. There's a few names. My wife always said, it's a shame because she likes the name Jezebel. He's like, but you don't want to name your kid Jezebel. Yeah, or Judas. I said, and I mentioned that one time. I was like, I know plenty. I've gone through the disciples list, and I've met pretty much every named a disciple. Nathaniel, Matthew, Mark, Luke. Luke's not a disciple, I know. Peter, John, Simon. I never met a Judas. Because people are like, we're not naming our kid Judas. It's like, we're not naming our kid Jezebel. Why? Because of the connotation that goes with it. Now, there could be that he's so brazen that he names the city Babylon, but it's just as possible that this is the title because of the association that it's anti-God, that it earned the title, Babylon. And so it's like God has not forgotten it. And so what's going to happen is the next little bit is going to be introducing Babylon in a picture. It says that every island fled away, the mountains were not found. It's saying how great the earthquake was. But something else is going to happen. Great hail will fall from heaven upon men, and each hailstone weighing a talent. When I read that, I'm reminded of the Battle of Gibeah. Joshua. And actually what happened, the plains, cities, they attacked Gibeah. Gibeah said, hey, Joshua, we need help. Joshua comes, and Joshua, you may not know it in that way, but you know it as the battle goes in Joshua. It says, ask for God for the sun to stand still so we can finish slaying them. But then if you actually read the full account, it says, and great hailstones fell, and more people fell from the hailstones than they did from Joshua's army. So God is showing his presence that this is my people. It's now God as I'm defending my people. Let me show you. Here's the hailstones. And this also makes it clear here. One of the things about the tribulation and what is coming is there are no innocent people here. There's nobody on the fence here. You're either with Christ or you're with Antichrist. There's no one going, hey, I didn't know. I'm sitting on the fence. No. Look what it says. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of hail, since the plague was exceedingly great. They're not going to blame it on climate change. They're not going to blame it on anything else. They're going to straight up go, this is God and he's at fault. And they're going to blaspheme God because of it. I've seen videos of some large hail. I'm glad I've never had it here. I've seen golf ball size hail. I've seen softball size hail. And all I can think is if any time I know that was coming, I'm definitely putting my cars in the garage. Because I do not want to replace all the windshields and fix dents. But those are nothing compared to what these ones would be. It says it weighs about a talent. I think one time I heard that somewhere's around like 100 pounds. Just imagine 100 pounds. And it's falling from the sky, so it's going to be falling at terminal velocity. So it's not coming slow kind of thing. So, and it's, despite the myth that, hey, if you dropped a penny from the CN Tower, it will embed itself into the cement. It's not true. It doesn't have the mass. In fact, it wouldn't even break your skin. It'll hurt you when it hits you on top of the head, but it's not really going to do anything. They've done it where same speed, they shot it into somebody's hand. It's like it hurts, but it doesn't break the skin. But these are 100-pound ice stones. They've got the mass. You drop 100 pounds at terminal velocity, I don't care what it hits. It's going to make a mark. And if it hits a person, they're not going to survive it, kind of thing. And so this is part of, so when Christ comes, it's nobody's escaping. This is what's going to happen. With that, though, we get the introduction of Babylon. Which after all that, you got to wait till next week. That's why I just looked at the clock. It's always to be continued until we get to the end, which is to infinity and beyond. So, next week we're going to pick up chapter 17. We're going to be introduced to this woman named Babylon. And the woman is representative of a city, and we see that throughout the scriptures. In Ezekiel, it's going to talk about two sisters. But the two sisters are named, but they literally mean Jerusalem and Samaria. So when it says Babylon, this woman's named Babylon, she's representative of the city. And as I said, it may not be the actual name, it just may be the title. And there's a good argument for that coming up. All right.